Hi, I'm Emma, a 25-year-old woman living in a three-bedroom apartment with two roommates, Jenny and Abby. When I first moved in, everything seemed normal. Friendly greetings, casual chats, and the usual roommate quirks like borrowing dishes or occasionally forgetting to do the dishes. We weren't best friends, but we got along well enough. Life was pretty smooth. Jenny was quiet but organized. Abby was a bit more outgoing and social. We shared chores and split the rent without any major issues. Sure, there were small annoyances here and there, like Jenny leaving her laundry in the washer too long, or Abby playing loud music late at night, but nothing serious. It was the kind of living situation I figured would be manageable, nothing out of the ordinary. But over time, subtle things started to change. Little signs that something wasn't quite right began creeping into our daily lives. At first, it was easy to dismiss. Missing snacks, misplaced keys, or weird smells in the kitchen. I told myself it was probably just forgetfulness or a mix-up. Still, a strange feeling settled in my gut, like something was off, but I couldn't put my finger on it. Despite my unease, I tried to stay calm and keep things friendly. After all, living with roommates always has its bumps, right? But as the days passed, those bumps grew larger and harder to ignore. Something dark was hiding beneath the surface, and I was about to find out just how dangerous it could get. The first thing I noticed was my food disappearing. Not just a little snack here or there, but entire meals gone without a trace. I'm not a big cook, so I usually kept a few easy-to-make items in the fridge. One day, I bought a container of peanut butter, something I rarely eat because of my allergy, and the jar was nearly empty the next morning. I asked Jenny and Abby if they had used it, but both denied it. I didn't push too hard. Maybe one of them had accidentally grabbed it. Then there were odd smells in the kitchen, like burnt nuts or something sour, things that didn't belong. I double-checked the trash, thinking maybe food had spoiled, but nothing explained the smell. At times, I found my things slightly moved or misplaced, as if someone had been in my room. These little things piled up, and I started feeling paranoid. I tried to rationalize it all. Maybe Jenny had been stressed from work, or Abby was going through something. I told myself not to jump to conclusions, thinking maybe I was overreacting. After all, roommates can be forgetful or messy sometimes. But then came the weird behavior. Abby would avoid eye contact when I brought up missing food. Jenny started acting defensive whenever I asked about my belongings. The atmosphere grew tense, and I noticed whispered conversations stopping as soon as I entered the room. I felt like I was being watched, but there was no clear proof of anything wrong. The more I observed, the more the unease turned into suspicion. Something was happening behind my back, but I had no idea what or why. I was stuck in a growing web of doubt, unsure who to trust and scared of what might come next. What made this situation even scarier was my severe allergy to nuts. It's not just a mild reaction, it's life-threatening. If I even come into contact with nuts, my throat can close up, and I can go into anaphylactic shock. I carry an EpiPen with me at all times, but I know that's only a temporary fix. Without immediate medical attention, I could die. Because of this allergy, I'm extremely careful with what I eat and drink. I always check labels, ask questions, and avoid anything that might have even touched nuts. It's a constant source of stress, but it's my reality. I've had close calls before, moments where my throat swelled and I had to be rushed to the hospital. So when Jenny started making jokes about putting nuts in my food, just to see if I was paying attention, I laughed it off nervously at first. I thought it was a bad joke, but deep down, I knew the risk was real. It wasn't funny, it was dangerous. The idea that someone I lived with could knowingly risk my life just to prove a point made my stomach churn. It wasn't just about missing snacks anymore. This was about survival. My vulnerability felt exposed in a way I never expected, and the tension at home became unbearable. Every meal, every bite felt like a potential threat. I couldn't trust what was in my own kitchen. The stakes were higher than ever. And I knew that if this continued, it wouldn't end well. It all came crashing down one evening after work. I had come home tired and hungry, looking forward to a simple dinner. I opened the fridge and grabbed a container of pasta I had made the day before, double-checking the ingredients as always. But the moment I took the first bite, a strange taste hit me, like something crunchy and nutty. My heart started racing, and my throat began to tighten. Panic surged through me as I realized what was happening. I scrambled to find my EpiPen, my hands shaking. I barely had time to inject before I felt lightheaded and struggled to breathe. I called Abby and Jenny, but Jenny wasn't home. Abby rushed in minutes later, her face pale and worried. As I caught my breath, I confronted Abby, asking if she had touched my food or put anything in it. She froze and said no, but I saw hesitation in her eyes. I wasn't sure if she was lying or scared. I told her how serious my allergy was and how close I'd come to a hospital visit this time. Jenny came back shortly after, and I told her what happened. She acted shocked and said it must have been an accident or contamination, something unintentional. But I knew better. This wasn't just a careless mistake. It felt deliberate. I remembered small things Jenny had said before, joking about nuts being a test or warning Abby. The fear settled in my chest like a stone. What if Jenny was trying to prove something by risking my life? That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the incident, wondering how someone could be so cruel. The trust between us shattered instantly. What was supposed to be a safe home had turned into a place where I had to watch every bite I ate, every moment I lived. I realized then this was no accident or misunderstanding. This was something far worse. I needed answers, and I needed to protect myself. The next day, I decided I couldn't stay silent. I sat Jenny and Abby down and told them everything. About the allergic reaction, how serious it was, and how scared I had been. I demanded to know if Jenny had tampered with my food on purpose. Jenny looked at me with a strange mixture of guilt and defiance. Finally, she admitted it. She said she did it to prove a point, something about how I was too controlling or paranoid about my allergy. She claimed she wanted Abby to see that I was overreacting, and that the allergy was being used as a weapon to control everyone's behavior. I was stunned. I tried to explain how dangerous it was, how it wasn't a joke, and that her actions could have killed me. But Jenny just shrugged, saying she didn't think it would be that serious because I carry an EpiPen. Her twisted logic left me breathless. Abby stayed quiet for the most part but seemed uncomfortable. She said she didn't want to get involved but was upset about the whole situation. I could tell she was torn between loyalty to Jenny and sympathy for me. The tension in the room was suffocating. I felt betrayed by two people I had trusted to share a home with. How could someone be so careless, so cruel? I told them both that I wanted Jenny to move out. There was no way I could live safely with someone who would risk my life to prove a point. Abby said she understood, but was reluctant to leave herself. The confrontation ended without resolution, but the damage was done. The house no longer felt like a home. I was scared, angry, and exhausted. My safety was at risk, and I had to make a choice. A few days later, despite all my precautions, I suffered another allergic reaction. This time, it wasn't from food, but something Jenny had left around, nutshells on the kitchen counter. I accidentally touched them while cleaning, and my hands carried the allergen before I realized it. Within minutes, my throat began to close again. Panic surged as I struggled to breathe. Abby called an ambulance, and I was rushed to the hospital. Lying on the hospital bed, struggling for air, I felt completely vulnerable. The nurses worked quickly, giving me oxygen and medications to reduce the swelling. My heart pounded as I fought to stay conscious. It was terrifying. This close to death in a place I should have felt safe. Emotionally, I felt broken. The betrayal, the fear, and the isolation hit me harder than the physical symptoms. I kept thinking about Jenny, about how someone I lived with could be so reckless. How could I trust anyone again? The hospital visit was a turning point. It was clear this situation couldn't continue. My health and life were at stake, and I had to protect myself no matter what it cost. I left the hospital determined to make changes. I couldn't stay silent or pretend this was a simple roommate dispute. It was a matter of life and death, and I was ready to fight for my safety. After the hospital visit, I knew I couldn't live with Jenny anymore. My safety was non-negotiable. I sat down with Abby to tell her my decision. Jenny had to move out. I explained everything: the tampering, the allergic reaction, the constant fear I lived in. Abby looked torn, caught between her loyalty to Jenny and her support for me. She didn't say much at first, but eventually nodded, agreeing that Jenny's behavior was unacceptable. When I told Jenny, her reaction was immediate and intense. She denied any wrongdoing at first, then turned angry and defensive, accusing me of overreacting and trying to control her. She called me paranoid and said I was ruining the house atmosphere. I stood firm, refusing to back down. I told her it was a matter of life and death, not just petty fights. The tension in the house thickened overnight. Abby tried to mediate, but Jenny became distant and hostile. I felt isolated and betrayed. It hurt knowing someone I once trusted could put me in danger like that. I was scared, not just for my health, but for what might come next. Would Jenny retaliate? Would she try to sabotage me further? I struggled with loneliness. The house felt cold and empty, even though Abby stayed on my side. I missed the easy camaraderie we once had, but I also knew that keeping Jenny around was too risky. The suspense of what Jenny would do next lingered over everything. Would she leave quietly or fight me every step of the way? I didn't know, but I was ready to protect myself no matter what. Sitting alone in the quiet house that night, I thought about everything that had happened. How did a friendship that once seemed so strong fall apart like this? How did trust get broken so badly? I felt a mix of anger, sadness, and confusion. I wondered if I had overreacted. Maybe I was too quick to judge Jenny or too harsh in my response. But then I reminded myself of the facts. This wasn't just about hurt feelings or petty arguments. It was about my life. Could I really risk staying in a place where I wasn't safe? Where someone knowingly endangered me? Still, doubt crept in. Was eviction too extreme? Could I have handled it differently? I struggled with guilt for betraying someone I once cared about. But deep down, I knew I had no choice. I shared my story here because I needed perspective. I wanted to know if I was right to protect myself or if I should have been more forgiving. Was I justified in kicking Jenny out? Or was I the one being the problem? I hope the community can help me see clearly. To sum it up, I lived with roommates I once trusted until one endangered my life by tampering with my food. After a frightening allergic reaction and hospital stay, I made the difficult decision to evict the roommate responsible. The fallout has been painful, and I'm left questioning my actions. Was I wrong to act the way I did? Was I too harsh? Or was I simply protecting myself in a dangerous situation? I'm turning to you for judgment. Am I the asshole here, or was I justified? Please be honest. I need to understand if I did the right thing. Thank you for reading my story.